Good evening. Welcome in daily UPSC editorial audio program. Travel, travel with care for local concerns. The Economic Times. An minded say Reliance mix. Sobering assessment. The Hindu. The challenges of renewable energy. Now the full editorial. Travel with care for local concern. The Economic Times. Tackle anti-tourism movements with sensitivity. Tourism is one of the key things that make the world and the world economy go round. But there is a countercultural movement at play, especially in the major tourism-driven economies in Europe. The 109 billion euro that 85.1 million international tourists generated for Spain's economy last year, for instance, is unable to draw out increasing anxiety that many Spaniards, particularly in cities like Barcelona, are experiencing. The crescendo of Vi- Vite e Casa Go Home in some of the country's major tourist centers is as real as the nearly 13% that tourism contribute to its economy. The pushback is neither new nor limited to Spain or Europe. For tourism to remain a vibrant economic sector, it will require balancing the right to travel with respecting the fights of residents. As more and more Indians travel for leisure and blazer business plus leisure, we also need to keep a balancing act that requires localization, innovation, and sensitivity in mind. UN World Tourism Organization reported an estimated 1.3 billion international arrivals in 2023, 88% of pre-COVID numbers. Growing affluence and uh, burgeoning service industries like tourism a strong economic sector, particularly for local economies. In 2023, travel and tourism directly accounted for 9.1% of global GDP. But fatigue and creeping community anxiety, noticeable in urban tourist destinations, is a result of a failure to manage capacities and changes that servicing a growing tourist influx demands. Problems such as outpricing residential properties need deft balancing of travelers and residents' rights. Policies for investing in tourism must be based on supporting initiatives that also elevate local priorities beyond the likes of local mercantile sales and turnstile proceeds at tourist destinations and landmarks. An export-minded self-reliance mix. India is trying to enlarge its global presence in manufacturing while offering tariff-based protection for local production. These seemingly contra- uh, contradictory policy objectives need to be celebrated carefully to attain the desired outcome. By itself, export promotion, if pursued by vigorously, can raise the share of manufacturing in economic output. Protection, however, has a poorer record in enabling local industry to acquire global scale. It has been India's experience as well till the economic reform of the 1990s that led to liberalization. The infant industry argument has been taken well past its economic rationale, leading to a balance of payment crisis. Over the next century, India India brought down import duties to competitive levels, yet the trade deficit in manufacturing did not yield expected improvement. Now the situation is different. Global supply chains are seeking resilience and protection for domestic manufacturing. India offers is for all takers, not just local companies. This blunts the infant industry case somewhat while allowing global capital time to seed in value chains in the country. Protection is a necessary defense the rest of the world is adopting to access Chinese manufacturing capacity. Any economy offering a manufacturing base in a China plus one scenario will have to build a temporary fence around Chinese exports. This approach has a better chance of attaining the goal of self-reliance while expanding India's footprint in manufacturing export. It gets around the issue of access to technology and capital that is usually a fallout of protective trade. It also steers the economy away from being swamped by good from exporto export oriented free trade partners. A rising share of manufacturing in an a rising share of manufacturing in an economy the size of India's also helps to rebalance global economic growth against China. Export orientation and self-reliance need not be as contradictory as orthodox economic policy making would suggest. Finding the right mix is key. This time, India may just have found the right blend. Sobering assessment. The Hindu. The richer nations must show more support for the poorest countries. The global economy has avoided the specter of a deliberating recession, with the IMF last week raising its forecast for worldwide aggregate growth in 2024 to 3.2% from the 2.9% it has projected in October. The IMF has underlined the fact that the global economy has, with surprising resilience, ridden out several adverse shocks as well as significant central bank interest rate increases aimed at restoring price stability and sustain the growth momentum, largely on the back of advanced economies led by the US undergirding demand. However, the fund has also pointed out to a income developing countries and the rest of the world. For these economies, growth is revised downward, whereas inflation is revised up. These poorest countries in Africa and including some Latin America, Pacific, Iceland, and Asian nations had also suffered the most, scaring from the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of estimated drop in output relative to pre-pandemic projections, and were struggling to recover. To compound their woes, these economies were now saddled with a mounting debt service burden that was severely impairing their ability to spend on vitality needed public goods, including better education, healthcare, and social nets to improve food security. The IMF IMF's twin twin development lender, the World Bank, has in a separate report pointed out that for the first time in this century, half of the world's 75 poorest countries were experiencing a widening income gap with the wealthiest economies, marking a historic reversal of development, as the World Bank Group's chief economist Indermit Gill observed in a blog post on the lender's site. The 75 poorest countries are home to a quarter of humanity, 1.9 billion people, and are home to 90% of people facing hunger and malnutrition. More distressingly, while these countries were midway through what he termed potentially a lost decade, Mr. Gill averred that the rest of the world was largely averting its gaze, even as the governments in at least half these nations were mostly paralyzed by debt distress, citing the examples of South Korea, China, and India as countries that had transitioned from being borrowers of low interest loans from the World Bank's International Development Association into economic powerhouses that were today IDA donors. The bank's chief economist stressed it was imperative that the world's richer countries financially support the poorest nations, given that the world needs to tap every reserve of economic potential to achieve universal peace and prosperity. It can ill afford to turn its back on the quarter of its people. The challenges of renewable energy. Shukanya Kaveri Lichetira, research at the School of Public Policy at IIT Delhi. Researcher at the School of Public Policy at IIT Delhi. At a recent speech, the United Nations Climate Change Executive Secretary Simon Stiles said said the next 2 years are essential in saving our planet. Record breaking heat, shortage of water, and other environmental issues are regular headlines in the context of the need to achieve development, increase employment, and reduce poverty and inequality, among others. Yet, the linkages between the pathways of development, sustainability, and climate change mitigation are far from well understood. Our current model of development drive greenhouse gas (CHG) emissions are unsustainable and inequitable. Although India aims to achieve net zero GHG emission by 2070, mainly led by a massive transition to large-scale renewable energy. The implication of such a transition on development or sustainability outcomes are unclear at the local and national levels. Examining solar parks, let us take an example of large scale solar parks, a key pillar of India's migration strategy. We have 214 square kilometer of land under solar parks, but some studies estimate that we may need 50,000 to 75,000 square kilometer, which is about half the size of Tamil Nadu, to achieve our net zero targets. At the local level, farmers in villages near India's two largest solar parks in Bhadla in Rajasthan and Pavagada in Karnataka report different experiences. In Bhadla, farmers have lost sacred common lands called orans, and pastoralists are faced with shrinking grazing land, forcing some to sell their livestock at throwaway prices. Such losses have led to protests demanding recognition of common land under the Forest Right Act (FRA) 2006. On the other hand, many farmers in uh, Pavagada were content with the steady annual income they receive by leasing out land for solar parks. This land was drought stricken and did not yield significant agricultural income. All the same, water security issues and economic disparity between large and small landowners are challenges for the region. At a more regional and national scale, solar parks may compete for essential natural resources. Solar panels require large amounts of water for their regular cleaning. Yet, our current national level estimate for the land available for social parks do not account for the availability of nearby water sources. Similarly, the land needed for solar parks may compete with other productive activities, agriculture, and related livelihood, with the potential for impacts on food security, impacts on biodiversity loss. With the construction of large scale solar parks are also location specific and under research. For instance, open natural systems such as deserts provide essential ecosystem services that, if disturbed, would cause ecological damage and even contribute to climate change. Crucially, all of these resource requirements and impacts on livelihoods and biodiversity are subject to uncertainty regarding feasibility and economic viability of other emerging low carbon technologies and the changing climate itself. Different approaches. Large scale renewable energy development can avoid reproducing the injustices of past large scale infrastructure projects while being sensitive to developmental objectives. Experimenting with the ownership model is one approach. The parks need not necessarily be owned by the state or private companies. Community initiatives could help generate revenues for the communities, further promoting small businesses and upskilling, improving incomes, stimulating local economies, and improving energy access. Solar and wind park development is exempted from environmental and social impact assessment. The legal and regulatory architecture must be revised and strengthened to limit adverse social and environmental consequences. In terms of impact on social and medium landowners, where private land is being used, there is no mechanism to monitor if a fair price is paid to those leasing their land. Involving local governance units in the planning and setting processes can provide an opportunity to align local development objectives with solar park development. Waterland classification needs a significant overall recognition of commons under the FRA would help improve environmental and equity outcomes by granting land ownership to communities dependent on commons. If such land is to be leased and acquired for solar parks, solar park development corporations will have to engage with local governance units such as the Gram Sabha to initiate the project, encouraging research and experiencing with encouraging research and experimenting with agri agrivoltaics is another way to think about sustainably developing renewable energy. Agrivoltaics voltaics pair solar with agriculture, creating energy and providing spaces for crops, grazing, and native habitats under and between panels. Thus, farmers can grow crop while also being prosumers, producers, and consumers of energy. Many of these challenges and opportunities relate to solar in particular, but similar issues abound with other mitigation technologies. Wind energies, for instance, had adverse consequences on bird ecosystems. Large-scale renewable energy projects could have positive employment outcome at the district level, but they lead to massive employment shifts between sectors at the national level. Adequate skilling and training programs targeting the unskilled and poorer populations are essential to protect them. Seize the opportunity. We are at the cusp of a second green revolution, this time involving energy. We have an opportunity to anticipate and unintended consequences of this revolution and align our technological, economic, and institutional structures to maximize synergies between sustainability, climate change mitigation, and development related outcomes. Thank you.